Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again to your live Investment Dominator Q&A call. My name is Warren Davis, and we're here on this it's Thursday, the 18th of March, 2021, here to get your questions answered. And we're so glad there's so many of you on the call today. We know there are other things going on, and you could be spending your time doing something else, but we do appreciate you being here and asking your questions. Hopefully we can do our best to facilitate getting them answered as quickly as possible. We're going to start with, as usual, with our backlog of questions. Before we get into the answering the questions, we do want to make sure you can see our screen. We have the different inputs and outputs of the Investment Dominator. Want to make sure that you can also hear our voice coming across the airways there. My indicators are showing me that you should be able to hear me, but we want to make sure we get a quick sound check from anyone that's out there that knows how to put in their response. For those of you that may be here with us for the very first time, if you are sending in your questions and you want to get your questions to me, there should be a control box. I want to tell you right off the bat, don't worry about this little hand signal here, raising your hand. I normally don't see that because there's so many of you on the call. However, when you type in your questions, if you might put in front of your question either a question mark or the word question, and then maybe a dash, and then state your question. Or you may, if you would put in a question mark or a Q, the letter Q, and then go ahead and state your question. That will help me to distinguish between questions and comments coming in. And as I forestated, what we're going to do is we'll start with our backlog of questions, and then we'll get right into handling those questions that are coming in today. So I'm thinking everyone can hear me. I didn't get a shout out from anybody saying, hey, you can hear me and you can see my screen, but we're hoping that you can. If you have any audio, if you're having any audio issues, we'll have to, if you type in what you're, that you can't hear, something of that nature, you might have to exit out and come back in again. Obviously, you may not be hearing this if you have audio issues. So any case, if you have anything going on with your monitors, you may just have to exit out of the call and come back in again, and it should clear up those issues. Okay, so welcome everybody. Glad that you're here. Let's get right into using our Investment Dominator here to answer any questions. I do want to state up front that coming up here on the 30th of March, if some of you don't know, there is another 2.5 day Investment Dominator Maximizer workshop that we will be having. So we're hoping if some of you are there that are going to be participating in that you have completed your what we call the big 3 items, and that you're ready to actually participate in the workshop so that you don't have to fall behind at any point. Okay, on with our questions for today. Starting with our backlog of questions, we had a question from Rosemary. I think it was just last evening or the other Monday evening when we had our webinar. Rosemary is asking, so she says, so we have to have our own buying and selling website made and then load them into ID. Okay, our own buying and selling website made and then load them into ID. And no, that's not correct. That is not correct, Rosemary. The simple fact of the matter is you have, once you get into your Investment Dominator account, as you can see, I'm in my account here, you have built in your websites. You have a buying site, which looks something like this here. This is our legacy version of the buying site. And you also have a selling site that starts with this opt-in page where people will come in and opt in. They will put in their first name, last name, email address. These are already built for you. You don't have to build in or build a site and then load them into Investment Dominator. They're already resident in Investment Dominator. And finally, once the person's opted in using this opt-in page, it will then communicate or go straight to your selling site, whatever your selling site domain is. This will display any deals that you have under contract that are in what we call complete ready to sell mode. So do you have to build your sites outside of Investment Dominator and then load them in? No, you do not have to do that. We'll show you how, once you do get your account set up in Investment Dominator, we'll show you under the websites how you can modify these sites and make them look a little different. You can customize them to some degree, make them look a little different from other people's sites. So hopefully that's straightforward and answers that question for you. Appreciate you asking that one. And what I have to do each time is write down my questions as we go through them here. Another question we got from George, I believe it's George or Jorge, however you may pronounce that. He was saying, so my company website is going to be the selling site, or has to be one with a selling domain specifically, and the buying site is a different one, also with a creative buying domain name. I think he's talking about the domain names. So he said, my company website is going to be the selling site. No, that's not exactly correct, Jorge. It can be. See, you have two websites basically. I'm just going to keep it simple here. You have two websites. You have a buying website and you have a selling website, as I just showed you. So basically, when it comes to your domain names, which I believe he's talking about the domain names, if you go under customize, and you look at your website settings buying, we have a domain name here, which is sellyourlandfaster.com. This was purchased by a domain provider. Or you have a selling site, which has all the land you have under contract, megalanddeals.com. So just to keep it simple, Jorge, this is your buying site where people are going to sell you their property, right? They're interested in selling you their property. So this one we called, and this is one domain name, sellyourlandfaster.com. So you need a domain name for that site. You also needed one domain name for your selling site, which is your site where people are going to purchase land from you. Okay, first one is where people want to sell you their land, so you'll be buying land from them. The second one is your selling site, where you are selling land to buyers that want to purchase your property. So those are just two different domains, and that's all the domains you need. And I'm hoping that makes it a little bit more clear for you. So you can call this selling site, you can call it your company website if you like. There's no problem in calling it that, but it's simply the site that you're going to use so that people can buy the land from you, purchase land from you, and you're going to be selling to them your land. This other site here is you're going to be buying land from them. So let's just keep it just that simple, and hopefully that will clear up any confusion. Okay, so your company website is your selling site. I'm going to have to figure a way to word that question a little bit different so that it'll be explainable when we actually publish this article. All of these calls, by the way, all the webinars are recorded, and we'll show you where you can access those. And the buying site is for a buying domain. Okay, very good. All right, John had posted a question last week, I believe. John's question has to do a little bit more with our LPG process deal flow. So if you have 250 records in Investment Dominator in prospect status, so we'll go right into our land deals here. Let's see. If you have any questions for today, please don't hesitate to type them in, and we'll make sure they get addressed today. So John's question was, if you have 250 records in Investment Dominator prospect status, so here are your records in prospect status, can you add 500 or more new records to the records that are already there if they have not been sent to ITI? Okay, ITI, by the way, is letterprinting.net. If you come up here under your campaigns area and we hover over this question mark, see, these are two templates that get sent to letterprinting.net or ITI. ITI is another way of saying letterprinting.net. Just to show you their site. ITI is, and they're a direct mailer. For those of you that are brand new, this is ITI. So a lot of folks get a little confused because some people say ITI, some people say letterprinting.net, and they don't realize that's the same company. So his question was, if you have 250 records that are already in prospect status, as you can see, I've got some records in prospect status. Can I upload or import another 500 using my import function here, maybe choosing a file and uploading my list? Can I add on top of these 250 records, can I add another 500? Yes, of course you can. You can import as many records as you want, and what Investment Dominator is going to do is put a unique property ID for each record that you import. If that record doesn't already exist, it will add a unique property ID here, and it will just begin to list all 500 records. So you can move those records in right up on top of the existing 250 that are there. So obviously you have approximately 750 records then waiting to go out to ITI or letterprinting.net. And when you go into your campaigns area and you select this CSV file, which is an Excel file, it opens up. It's going to have all records. Here you'll see all the unique identifiers. It's going to have all of your records in the format that ITI or letterprinting.net needs to print out all of your neutral letters, and it will list every record that's in prospect status. That's what this does, right? So again, that's going to be found in this CSV file. So hopefully, John, that answers your question. Absolutely, you can import as many as you like. Now, just for an additional insight, in Investment Dominator, the whole goal is, once you have these records, you've brought them in, they're in prospect status. Once you have mailed them out to ITI, let's say for this week's mailings, you want to come in here under campaigns and you want to do a bulk update records, because that's going to move all, in this case, 313 records that are in prospect status. That's going to move them to mail letter 1 status. And that's the next status that you want these records to be in, so that next week when you come in and you do your next mailers, right? These records are no longer in prospect status. They are in mail letter 1 status. And then all your new records you bring in are going to be in prospect status. That's the flow that we want to get in, if you will. Okay? All right. I just have to write down my questions here. In prospect status, can we add an additional 500 records? Okay, certainly hoping that's clear with everybody. All right. Okay, and we'll get, I see some questions coming in for today, and we'll get to those as soon as we finish our little backlog here, or if I can put one in, in the midst of a question I'm answering because it's around the same issue, I will definitely do that. Let's see. Okay. Land deals. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, Jorge or George, I'm going to get back to that question here momentarily. It might coincide with this next question here. So I think this was your question from Monday. Can you have a main domain for your company and then also another specific sellers and buyers domain for forward to the main one? Oh, okay. If I'm understanding you correctly, you want to have a main domain or a domain name for your company domain. Now, I'm going to make the assumption that your company domain is going to be your selling site domain. That's where people come to buy property from you. Okay, and you're saying, and then also another specific sellers and buyers domain. Okay, so you want to have a main domain for your company and then have specific sellers and buyers domains that get forwarded to the main company domain. And I would say no in that. I would be very careful about doing that. Jorge, if you have a main website that's outside of Investment Dominator, and then you want to, if I'm understanding you correctly, you want to forward your buying site domain and your selling site domain to that main company domain. Um, I would be very careful about doing that, and I don't see an advantage to doing that because these are two completely separate markets of people. Okay, keep in mind that on your buying site domain, people are going to be selling you their land for pennies on the dollar, right? So you're going to be buying land at 1/4, maybe 1/3 the market value of that property, pennies on the dollar. This other group of people here that's going to come to your selling site, these individuals are going to be paying thousands of dollars more than what you paid for that property. So what you're dealing with is two completely separate markets of people, two completely separate mindsets, and I wouldn't want to forward these domains or these sites to a third site. First of all, I don't see any advantage to doing that. Um, could you do it? Yes, I believe you can do it. Now, anytime you want to use a site, and I'm assuming your company site, it sounds like would be outside of the Investment Dominator, because in Investment Dominator, we only give you two sites. So you have a buying site and a selling site. That's all that's there. If you've got a third site that you want to forward these domains to, what you're going to need is what we call a Zapier connection. And Zapier connection, that's just a way of saying it's going to take all of the data from your buying site. And if you want to forward that data, or you want to connect this site to a third site, which you're going to call, I think, your company site, you need a Zapier connection that's going to format the data from the Investment Dominator site, communicate with the Zapier connection in your main company site, which would be a third site outside of Investment Dominator. Can you do that? Yes, you can do that. I'm not sure I see an advantage to that, but you can do that. If you want to look up that kind of a connection, or you want to understand what Zapier does, come up here under your Help tab, log into your Investment Dominator, go up under Help, and you want to search our user guide, and just type in the word Zapier, Zapier, and search, and it's going to bring up a lot of different, uh, articles, how to connect, Zapier, the Investment Dominator to get response email marketing, how to connect the Investment Dominator to e-signatures, and basically we'll explain to you a little bit more about how to use Zapier in these different scenarios. And I thought we had another one, just basically how you did a Zapier connection, period. And this one goes into a little bit about what Zapier is. So what you might end up doing, if you really want to do this for whatever reason, you might end up contacting our technical group. And in that case, you can just create a new support ticket here. Okay. And that is the actual correct. So Jorge says, so the company domain would be the one focused for the selling site, right? And that is correct. The company domain is focused on the selling site. That is correct. Whenever I think of my company, domain, I'm thinking of the one that brings me in the most money, right? And that would definitely be under customize. That's definitely going to be my selling site domain. So whatever my selling site domain, that's what I look at as being my company domain, where people are going to pay thousands of dollars for the property I have under contract. Okay, I'm glad that clears up that for you. And we have a domain. I need to write down my question here. For your company. Then also okay. Good questions, people. Again, it does help hopefully clarify some of the ins and outs and the way the Investment Dominator works for you. Okay. The main one. All righty. Great. I'm glad that makes sense. And let's move on here. As I said, if we do have some other questions that come in, we will be happy to address them today. So James had a question from last week. Are our current sites, the buying and selling sites, WordPress? Or can we have a WordPress site built and have the buying and selling sites in Investment Dominator connect to those sites and exchange information with the Investment Dominator? Okay, simpler. That's kind of a follow-up question almost, James, to what we just answered previously. But to say specifically, are our sites, current sites, WordPress? The answer to that is no. WordPress, basically, WordPress is an open source content management system. And when I say open source content management, when you go up under your help facility and you search your user guide, and let's just type in import any of the articles that we publish in the Investment Dominator. I write a lot of those articles. These articles are published in what we call WordPress. All right, it's just a simple open source content management system, allows us to, put in headings, put in our different explanations or information that supports what we want to display in terms of screens. When I display a screen, I can bring in that screen into the WordPress app, if you will, and just allows me to be able to write and publish. It's like a blogging tool, right? It allows me to write my articles and post them in a blogging format so that they can be reached and searched for in our Investment Dominator. That's what WordPress is. WordPress does not create these sites that you see, like your selling site is not supported in WordPress. As a matter of fact, if I go here and I left click on this particular banner and I do an inspect, see all this code over here is what's actually running behind your websites, which primarily is HTML code. That's what powers your websites, not WordPress. So for those of you that are just a little bit more technical, hopefully that answers your question there. Okay, so they're definitely not WordPress. Now your question is, can you have a WordPress site? And that's a good question, James. I haven't seen this. So your question is, can you have a WordPress site built and have the buying and selling sites in Investment Dominator connect to those sites and exchange information with the Investment Dominator? To my knowledge, if you did create a WordPress site, and I haven't seen this done, but any site you create, just keep in mind that it will be crucial for you to have a Zapier connection on both ends. So again, we go back here to Zapier. You have to have this Zapier connection. And here's one that explains what exactly is Zapier. You can share data from Investment Dominator with over 2,000 other web apps and SaaS systems. So yes, you can build a WordPress site and you can have your buying and selling site interact with that site by having a Zapier connection between your WordPress site and Investment Dominator. The important thing to remember is since we have Zapier running in Investment Dominator, you also need to have a Zapier connection for your WordPress site, basically, right? So the way it's going to end up is when you share data, you're going to have your Investment Dominator site start out, right? One Investment Dominator site. It's going to send data through a Zapier connection setup. That data is going to go to another Zapier connection, and then it will display on your WordPress site. So that's the way it's going to work. You need a Zapier connection that is working with Investment Dominator. You need another Zapier connection that's going to be working with WordPress or whatever other of the web apps that you decide to use. All right, so Zapier is going to speak with Zapier, and then they're going to be able to display data on one site or on another site if it's outside of Investment Dominator. I certainly hope that's not too confusing, but that's the way it has to be set up. The whole point is you're going to need whatever sites you set up outside of Investment Dominator, you're going to need Zapier. Okay, have WordPress site built. And have the buying sell sites in ID connect. So you can do this, and the reason why people, like you might ask the question, well, why do people, have a site outside of Investment Dominator if they get these free? Some of you out there have already been doing deals. Maybe you've got a website set up. Some people they purchase Investment Dominator so they can leverage the power of Investment Dominator, organizing their data, setting up their company information, customizing documents, etc. So they want to leverage the power of Investment Dominator, but they already have an existing buying or selling site. Normally it's a selling site that they've been using for years. So basically, they have a large group of individuals that are already aware of their selling site. Their SEO number is high. It stands for search engine optimization. So basically, a lot of people already know about their site, and they, rather than just now start over with a brand new Investment Dominator website that a lot of their customers don't know about, they want to keep their existing selling site instead of using our site. They want to keep their existing selling site because it's formatted the way they want, etc. But they want to house their data in Investment Dominator in our land deals area. So in order to do that, they need to be able to take the data out of Investment Dominator, have it formatted and displayed on their selling site. And that's the reason a lot of folks, they appreciate the fact that they have a free site, but they don't want to use our site. They want to use their own existing site. So that's the reason why they would set up a Zapier connection, so they can keep their own existing website in place. Connection with Investment Dominator CRM. Okay, hope that makes a little sense to you. It brings a little more clarity as to even why we have the Zapier connections in place. Something I didn't understand when I first got into this. Okay, so 33, 20, that's 38. Okay, so we have a question about logos as well, which we can get to here real quick. We have a question from Angela. Good question, Angela, on what is the size of the logos, okay, for both sites. All right, the logo size selling. All right, let me bring up a little file here real quick so you can, probably should have this typed out somewhere just so you can, because I get asked this question a lot. So logo sizes is exactly 207 pixels wide and 54 pixels high. Okay, so that's standard in Investment Dominator. You need, if you're going to create your own logo, make sure it's 207 pixels wide, 54 pixels high. Hopefully that will. So when we come in and we have a buying site and you see this logo here, it comes into Investment Dominator and it displays and it fits. That's most important. It fits because it is 207 pixels wide, 54 pixels high. Where do we see that at? That is in under Customize, website settings, buying or selling. This is where you will be able to, if you have an existing logo on your Investment Dominator, or excuse me, on your computer that you want to upload, you can upload that logo image. But the moment that you do that, well, let me get out of this. Let me get back to that. The moment you upload your logo image and it comes into Investment Dominator is going to crop it. So it's only going to allow you to have the dimensions 207 pixels wide, 54 pixels high. And that's so it's readable and it comes out clear. So a lot of people, have pixels or have their logos that are a little too large and it will not clearly come into the Investment Dominator, or it won't fit because the logo has to be cropped, and the cropping tool is only going to allow that size of a pixel, that size of a logo. 207 pixels wide, 54 pixels high. Okay. What's regarding the phone lines? Okay. Let's see. Let me move on here. You're welcome, Angela. Okay, Luis had a question, which might be a question some of you have had before. Oh, I tell you, our time goes by so fast here. Luis's question, what do you think is best, or what do you think is most appropriate to use for a company name for a selling site domain or another specific selling site domain name? Oh, okay. Okay. So what do you think is most efficient to use? Either a company name for a selling site domain or another specific selling site domain name. All right, so we do get asked that question. And what Luis is saying is under customize here, you have company information and within your domain name for your selling site where people are going to come and purchase property. He wants to know, should he use the company name as a part of that domain name? Like in this case, it would be orbitinvestments.com. Should he use that or some other catchy name like paradiselandforyou.com? And now this is just my personal opinion, Luis. This is not anything that other than my personal opinion. You know, I like having the word in there somewhere, land somewhere in your name. So if your company name did not have the word land in there, I might personally shy away from that. But please understand, people have been very successful using their company name, like jbinvestments.com. People are been very successful just using their company name in their selling site domain, and they've purchased that domain and it's worked out well. Now, sometimes if you have a specific company name and depending on what that company name is, your domain might cost you more if you want to actually purchase that domain, because it's like it's a very unique name, or and that's going to be up to GoDaddy or whoever your domain provider is. However, I like having, a name rather than using my company name. I like having a name that says the kind of business I'm in, and I'm in the land business. So I would probably migrate towards a name like Paradise Land for You or Choice Land for You.com. Those would be domain names I would pick. But again, that's only one private investor's opinion. All right. So let me get that down. Okay. Best use company name, domain, or another. Okay, very good questions, folks. I really appreciate your questions. Your questions help a lot of people that may be a little shy about asking questions. So thank you for sending them in, and thank you for just having the courage to put it out there, and get your questions answered. And by the way, if you want to know any other way that some of you that may have questions, there is another forum. If you don't want to type them in here, you can go up under help and just create a support ticket and just type in your question here. And this is another way to get your question answered. Make sure you tell them, though, the platform that you're on, if you're on a computer, Mac, so that they can make sure that they know, make sure that your system or maybe the browser that you're using is not going to affect any of the Investment Dominator functionality. Investment Dominator works a little differently under Safari and sometimes Firefox than if you're using Chrome or Internet Explorer. So please specify which ones you're using, but go ahead and type in your questions here. And then obviously when you get your questions answered, look for them in the ticket history area. That will help greatly if you want to get your questions answered, and you may not want to type them in here. We get questions answered in ID. Okay, I hope that's a little helpful for you. Very good. And let's see. Looks like Jorge had one more question. Question from last week was regarding the phone lines. I do have one with Google Voice. Okay, I would like to use it. Don't think I can have two extensions there. Probably not. Would getting another Google Voice line be good enough to start operating or not? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. If you have a couple of phone lines, let me use another account here to explain this a little better. Okay, so here under your customize in your company information, if you have a Google Voice number, now you have to make some decisions here. If when you send out your neutral letters, when you send out 500 or more neutral letters, you have to decide if you want to take those calls yourself personally. If you do, you could put your Google Voice number in here, right? Which is going to go out to all of your customers, and they're going to call this Google Voice number back, which you could have it tied to a cell phone. So So the Google Voice, you'd like to use it. You don't have two extensions, so you have a Google Voice number for your company phone. Sounds like you would have another Google Voice number for your offer phone. So when you actually send out offers, you could have another Google Voice number, which, like I said here, you can have Google Voice or you can have a Skype number, whatever you like. Sounds like that's the way you'd set it up. So you'd have a Google Voice number associated with your company phone or your neutral letters, another Google Voice number associated with your offers. That's fine. And don't forget that you need a third number just for your buyers of property, because these two, your offer phone and your company phone, are your sellers of property. People that are going to be selling you their property. So the Google Voice number would work here. Now, just keep in mind, and I think you're safe here. Later on, if you decide, well, hey, I'm tired of taking all these neutral letter calls because they can be numerous. Just keep in mind that if you have a Google Voice number in here for your company phone, you'll need to forward that to some other location other than your personal cell phone or your cell phone, so that you might decide within 2 or 3 months that you want Pat Live or you want Smith AI, which are call centers. You want them to take your calls because there's just too many calls coming in. That's fine. You would then just forward that Google Voice to a Pat Live person, and you should still be safe. Or you forward it to Smith AI. And then, of course, for your offers, you could forward the second Google Voice number, to a personal cell or wherever else you want to forward that to, right? And then, of course, you have to come up with a solution for your selling site phone, which is your buyer phone, the people that are buying property from you. So hopefully that answers that for you. You can have more than one Google Voice number set up. No problem. Okay. Multiple Google Voice numbers and my company information. Okay. Don't have two extensions. All right. Very good. And said, so is it a good idea to use your personal number for the selling site number? Is it a good idea? I think it's fine as long as you know. Now it's a yes and a no answer at the same time. Okay. Yes, you can use your personal cell phone for your selling site phone number. You can. However, we like to have this phone dedicated to our buyers. I don't want my friends or family or associates to have the same number that people that are going to buy property from me have. And here's the reason why. Because when that phone rings, see, we have a dedicated phone line. It's a black cell phone. I call it my money phone. Whenever that phone rings, I automatically know it's someone wanting to purchase property. And that's the only reason why that phone's going to ring, unless somebody mistakenly, got it. One of the telemarketers or whatever got that phone. But I keep that dedicated to my buyers. And because when I answer that phone, I answer it with my business name, and I'm answering it with the intent on selling a piece of property. So that phone doesn't ring every day like my personal cell phone, and I don't want to have to distinguish between personal calls and my business calls. So though you can do that, I personally would not do that, because I kind of want to be in the world and in the mode of having my mindset when that phone rings. Okay, I'm about to do some business here, right? And I get into that mode, and then I get my big book out that has all of the different counties with the land I have under contract, so I can be ready to talk to my buyers. So that's my take on that. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Okay, but it is up to you. All right. Number for selling site. Okay, got a little time here. A little time left to get a couple of questions in here. Okay, Angela, good question. Okay, how to add 2 more fields to your import list. All right, good question. Import fields approved for Dominator. Recommend a data. Okay, so Angela, the way that you're going to add that is, I think you're on the right track there. You said that there's in the import fields approved by the Investment Dominator. If I go in here under help, I'm going to search my user guide. I'm going to type in the word import. So if I want to import additional fields, I'm going to look for the article, how to import your list for land investing. I come up under this article. And when I scroll down, any of these fields that are not colored, these are additional fields that can be added to your import field. And all you should probably do, just to be safe, is copy them, because these are going to be the column headings of your CSV file, your Excel file, right, that you're going to use to import into Investment Dominator. So you want to copy them just as they are here, so the Investment Dominator doesn't spit them out as invalid fields. So anything that's in white, that's not colored like this company, these are valid additional fields that you can utilize that Investment Dominator will accept. All right, we have a long list, and if you want to say a condensed list of all that, here are your 11 required fields that you need, right? So beyond that, you have 31 additional fields. So I don't know which fields you're trying to add, but if you want, you want some additional fields here, you have a big list to choose from. And we've even had some folks that have used, like, let's say one of the, I don't know, short legal description for some other piece of data that they wanted to import into Investment Dominator. They didn't have the short legal, but they used it to actually, they just used that field because it's a big field, and they imported some other data, and they just know for their records, short legal description, equals this other data. So hopefully that's clear there. Okay. Okay, so Angela is asking if you want to add specific fields. Let's just say, well, in this case, you're saying you have market value and property address. Okay, so here's your extra fields. You have property address right here, and you have market value right here. So let me show you what that would look like if you wanted to add those fields. Let's see. Okay. Look here. Imported. Okay. So let's just say I have a field. I have an import file here that I'm going to use to import into Investment Dominator. All I'm going to do, let's say, Angela, if I wanted to add property address, I'm going to come in here, I'll copy property address. This is going to be one of my headings. Bring into my CSV file, and I'm just going to put it right there, property address. And then you said the other one was market value. I'm just going to copy this as one of my, okay. That is not my money phone ringing there, so I'm not going to answer that one. And I'm going to make this now a part of my import. This is my import field. So here, I've got now my market value and my property address, and then whatever data goes in here. So you just add it, not in the Investment Dominator. You just add it to your import file. See, when I save this, this is the file that I'm going to import into Investment Dominator. So once you just add those fields to your import file, just like I did, and whatever data or information you put in here, that's what's going to be put in for each record that's associated with it, right? So this is all you do. Just add a couple of columns. Don't forget to save it. And when you save it, you always want to save it as a CSV comma delimited file. That's if you're on a regular PC or laptop. If you're on a Mac computer, you want to save it as a CSV comma separated. CSV, so that's the type. So make sure you save it as a comma delimited or comma separated file. And once you save it, you should be fine. Okay, so that's how you add it. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about adding it to the Investment Dominator. Investment Dominator is already smart enough. It's already looking for any fields named this, spelled just like this with a capital M and a capital V for value. So Investment Dominator is already aware that that's what it's looking for. And if you add it to any of your required fields, you will import successfully. That's what we have to make sure you got it, Angela. You got to make sure you folks understand that. Okay. Very good, people. Very good. Thank you for your participation today and for being on. I really, really appreciate you guys, and I'm inspired by your tenacity and you're moving forward in your land business. Let me leave you with a quote here from Maya Angelou. You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you really are and what you can rise above and how you can still come out of it. That's a Maya Angelou quote. And there's not a time, and there's going to be times in this business where you feel like, wow, man, this is really difficult and I'm feeling the strain. But I want you to know, if you persevere and you continue to go through, not only are you going to learn a lot, but you're going to build confidence. Every deal that you make that was a little difficult, that was a little bit strange. So don't be discouraged, folks. Keep moving forward. If a guy like me can do this business when I had no real estate background, replace my income and retire from that corporate position I had, you guys can do it too. Just keep hanging in there, and we'll see you on Monday. We'll be right here again to get your questions answered. Have a wonderful remainder of your day and a great weekend, folks. We'll talk to you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.